This is the Candidly Kim podcast.
All right, welcome to the Candidly Kim podcast. This is episode 2, and we're getting rolling, kind of getting in the groove of this whole podcast thing. Welcome, Doran, our producer.
Thank you.
And also infamously known for the Facebook page, Spit Take Brigade.
Mm-hmm.
And today's, one of your entries today is just a little bit PG-13 or TV mature.
You know, I'm thinking about starting a weekly thing. We'll call it Risque Tuesday.
Oh, well, that yeah, you're off. Today's Friday, but today's was risque,
right?
So, okay, that works. Well, boy, it's been a big week. I mean, it has been a big news week. Current events exploding all over since our first podcast. So, great to be back. We are only audio tonight. I'll just be very honest. I had my eyes done and a little bit of lift done. And, I have some healing to do. Not really. I wish that was the surgery I had. I actually did have a little bit of a surgery to remove a spot of cancer. So this is also my PSA, wear sunscreen or a hat or something. The sun is only a friend for vitamin D, only so long. But, we're not ready for video right now. But another few days, I think so.
I think you're looking great. And you're healing up well.
Well, you saw me immediately after, so I hope so. But that it is a little bit of a PSA to anything weird on your skin.
Yeah, I took my kids to a dermatologist a couple of years ago, and they have a lighter skin tone than I do. And the dermatologist told them, make sure you put on sunscreen anytime you go out in the sun. And she turned to me and said, you don't need to worry about it so much.
Well, and I have some fairly olive skin and never really burned or anything, but child of the 70s, I guess, still. So, I wish, I did tell them, can you just kind of take care of a few other issues while you're at it? But anyway, next one we should be back with some video along with this. We have Senator Mike Lee is going to talk to us about Judge Barrett's nomination, what we can expect in the process, and really what he knows about her. So he knows her fairly well, was participated in her judicial appointment to the federal bench, and is pretty well associated with her. So we're going to hear some great things about her throughout this podcast.
But we didn't talk to Mike before he was tested positive for coronavirus. So that's right. Interesting.
So that came out today, and I think that's, let's just start with that, of course, it was announced last night. Boy, the tickers on all the TVs, Twitter lit up last night, that President Trump and the First Lady have tested positive for coronavirus. And in the last couple hours, he's been taken to Walter Reed, and where he's going to, apparently there is a presidential suite where he can continue to function in his duties while having, very, very good care.
Yeah, I hope they have Fox News in there.
So, but we do wish them, absolutely, we wish them speedy recovery. We've got an election to win in just a couple weeks, and excited for that. Mike Lee, we also found out today that Senator Lee was also has also tested positive. Mild symptoms, but nonetheless, some symptoms. And so we hope that resolves pretty quickly. So send your prayers, well wishes, good vibes their way. And Kellyanne Conway, I guess, also.
Wow, I hadn't heard that one.
Mm-hmm. So, So, I clearly the president lives in a lifestyle and in his duties that he's able to be tested frequently, keep his distance, but he is exposed to a lot of people as well. So here we go. I hope all is well with the president. A lot of other stuff. Of course, the nomination of Judge Amy Coney Barrett. Very excited about that. Very excited about that. Lots of conversation. How are they going to attack her? Where are they going to go after?
The assumption is that they're going to go after her faith. Is it bad that she's Catholic, or is she Catholic enough, or not enough, or too much? Is she too Catholic? Yeah, that seems to be what everybody's talking about, but I guess it kind of remains to be seen whether that's even an issue.
Well, when we look back at the Judge Kavanaugh hearings and just how atrocious they were, what a travesty of process, what an offense to him as a person, the stature of the offices he's held, the positions he's held, and for what these hearings are meant to do in seeking out the qualifications. This was such an awful time. I had a son who was out of the country, actually is serving an LDS mission, and he missed all of that. So we talked about it last night and how horrible it was. And so, there's no way they do a similar thing to Judge Barrett, but it will not be nice. I hope it's nice. I hope it's respectful. But we're going to hear from Mike Lee, and we did, like you said, we did record that a day before yesterday. So let's get you updated a little bit. Last time we talked about the separation of powers issue that we have here in Utah, where our current state law.
Well, wait. Before we get there, last time you said you would have a big announcement to make. Do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to, or wait a little while?
I don't know. Okay. I'll do that then. Okay. Oh, I get it. This is how you do, because Doran, I get a little bit exercised when I start talking about what the governor's done.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll save that to the end, or we'll save that before Mike Lee. Before Senator Lee. Okay. So this is really exciting. Several weeks ago, I was asked to serve on an advisory board for a super PAC. Never done that before. Super PAC. This is a pro-President Trump super PAC, and it is called.
What makes a PAC super? Is it a cape? Do you wear special shirts, or? In
this case, it's some bad A women who are on this board. Really, it is pretty exciting. So it is Moms for Safe Neighborhoods. So find us on all over social media. Instagram has taken off because some of us are like middle-aged and over, and Instagram's kind of the afterthought. Like, I'm all on Facebook. But anyway, we are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram is doing really well. And Moms for Safe Neighborhoods. Such a timely thing. So some of the women who are on this board with me are Debbie Meadows. That's Mark Meadows' wife. She also formed the Super PAC Right Women, which is dedicated to helping conservative women get elected. And she endorsed my race. That PAC also supported my race. And she, of course, Mark Meadows is the president's chief of staff. So I have met with her. She is just delightful. I love her to death. Lisa Nelson, very powerful policy world woman. She's the executive director of ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, which is an organization, an association of conservative state legislators. And so I'm active in that organization as well. Some other state legislators from across the country, Lori Sane from Colorado, Yvette Harrell, New Mexico. She's headed to Congress. She won the primary, and she is the nature of her district. She's likely to win that race. So a good number of great, strong women. Oh, can't forget Cleta Mitchell. She's an attorney. She's a policy analyst for a number of organizations. So she actually worked on my campaign. So
Oh, cool.
she worked with my FEC compliance and stuff. So when I was invited to do this, just absolutely honored to be a part of this, and it is led and founded by Jessica Anderson, who is a former President Trump aide. And so that's been very noteworthy. So, let me just, we had a lot of good news stories. Let me just read an excerpt out of Washington Times. Moms for Safe Neighborhoods is hoping the trope of the soccer mom is replaced with the safety mom in 2020 and is leveraging recent rioting to help Mr. Trump persuade suburban women to his column. I think there are more of those than people would think, actually, going on. Mothers for Safe Neighborhoods is led by Jessica Anderson, a former aide to Trump White House and executive director of Heritage Action for America. Politico said Moms for Safe Neighborhoods, a group founded by former White House aide Jessica Anderson that goes by Moms for short, is investing $3 million in an ad campaign targeting suburban moms. This group will air a 30-second spot on networks and shows that appeal to suburban women. So we were all over network and cable stations last week, a lot of good advertising, and you'll see us again this week. We're going to hit this hard.
Awesome.
And really making the case for there is a very, very distinct difference between what Biden's America would look like versus Trump's America when it comes to safety, when it comes to law enforcement. And on our previous podcast, we did talk about real big problems in our capital city, very understaffed police force and underfunded, and crime is getting to be a really significant problem in Salt Lake City. And so we had our little bit of protest during the summer BLM protest, where then it gets hard to distinguish what's protest and legitimate, possibly legitimate protest. But then other elements come in, and we had our own rioting here in Salt Lake City. And we had Salt Lake City's police chief take a knee with Black Lives Matters, and there are definitely some law enforcement issues in Salt Lake City. And we're seeing Portland, we're seeing Seattle, we're seeing Philadelphia, we're seeing all these cities literally on fire. People leaving these cities.
Yes, mass exodus out of the urban centers.
That's right. So, and Biden and some of the Democrats, they want to say, well, that's Trump's America. Let's be very clear. These are Democrat-run cities.
Correct.
With Democrats deciding how they prioritize their funding for law enforcement, how they support their law enforcement or not, and where are neighborhoods safe and not. I will tell you, I spent 4 hours on the telephone today talking to citizens in Salt Lake City whose neighborhoods are just being trashed, and they call and report these crimes and they don't hear back. There's just not enough resources. One officer said that when he comes on to shift, there are 400 calls and backlogged, 30 to 60 actual crimes with case numbers that they just don't get to. They can't get to.
Wow.
So anyway, Moms is one of the answers to that. We are talking very, very upfront about what a Democrat-led nation looks like when it comes to crime and when it comes to safe neighborhoods, protecting our children. I love some of the ideas that President Trump is coming up with. If you let your city turn into criminal battle zone, rioting, and you don't do anything as the local government, then what should all the taxpayers of the country do for you then?
Right. What are we even paying our taxes for?
Right. And I also like what DeSantis has done out of Florida. So I really, really, really like this part. So he, his policy, and I'm not sure where this is, if this is a proposal or if it's making its way through the Florida legislature, but he has said, if you're not going to do your job to protect your citizens, then we're going to take away governmental immunity. Yeah. Yeah, look at your face. Governmental immunity, pretty much in this country, there can be so much done and not done. And governmental officials can just say, well, sue me, because you can't, because they're immunized. They really can't be, to some large degree, they really can't be held responsible for a lot of things. So I love in this case, DeSantis has said, yeah, no, if you're not going to protect your people, we're not going to immunize you. I love that. So I'm not coming back to the legislature next year. My term is ending, but I've already talked to colleagues about someone needs to carry something like that. What do you think?
Well, yeah. If your successor doesn't have the passion that you have, then they need somebody. Somebody needs to take on this. Needs to go up there and chant every day, jealously guard your responsibility.
That's right. Jealously guard that. And so my successor is a man named Jordan Tusher. So look for him. And good principled guy. So
Jordan's awesome.
Jordan is awesome. Salt Lake County Mayor Trent Staggs, a candidate, the Republican candidate, really needs to go in and bring some common sense, some accountability, some transparency, some efficiency to Salt Lake County government.
I love all the Republicans that are running for county office right now.
They're great.
Yeah.
They're great. You want to name them?
We got Dave Alvord, who's running for District 2.
On the council.
Yeah. D. Theodore is running for District 6. And, of course, Trent is running for county mayor. And then we have Laurie Stringham, who's running for the at-large seat that's open.
So we also have Chris Stavros running for assessor, and then Aaron Preston.
Oh, right. Recorder.
Right. So, yeah, great lineup. They could actually do some great things with Salt Lake County. Salt Lake City, I don't know. Boy, all I can tell these residents that call me is, you chose these people.
Well, you chose the city to live in.
We chose the city to live in. And then you keep electing the people you elect to run the city. Okay. So be involved in your local races. I mean that is the thing. So people will call me, ask me about national things. And, don't forget about what's happening locally. And we have a governor's race.
Yeah.
We have a congressional race here. That's it is a contest. It was one I ran for in the 4th Congressional District. So we have Burgess Owens as our Republican candidate running against Ben McAdams. And please, let's just not have Ben McAdams. But we're going to come back in the next couple of weeks. We're going to talk about Ben's record because people need to know. He has these commercials that are just so nice. They're so nice.
There's so much money being poured into this race already.
A ton.
Yeah.
We've had, what's his name? New York. I'll come back to this. Anyway, ton of money on the Democrat side. And there's a reason they want to keep Ben McAdams in there. And so we're going to come back in the next several episodes here, and we're going to talk about exactly all the really bad policies Ben has been behind and what the Democrats would do. A lot of my social media right now, if you go on Facebook, I'm talking a lot about the Democrats' position on eliminating single-family housing.
Yeah.
And Doran, this is in your backyard as far as our state goes, Utah right now. That there is quite a push, quite the designs to eliminate single family housing. Very, very Democrat, leftist, progressive move. That is sort of the ultimate in socialism and redistribution of stuff. We think about redistribution of our cash, but one of there is a core Democratic liberal move to if you don't own property, if you don't own real estate is one of the big factors in contributing to upward mobility, stability of communities. And the left understands that, and they would like to eliminate one of the greatest factors that contribute to those very positive things.
I know they keep trying to present. They know that property ownership is something that most people strive for. So it seems like their tack is to change the kind of property that you should want to own. And so you should just own a townhome in a multifamily or attached housing. And that may work when you're first married.
Or later in
life. Correct. But most people, when they start having kids or owning pets, they want to have a yard. They have bigger aspirations, and it does seem like the progressive mindset is that the community can address all those needs.
Well, and I'm going to give props to Stanley Kurtz. So he's one that I've worked with in the past a little bit and have been aligned on free speech issues. But right now he is going after this whole elimination of single family housing. And so I've reached out to him. I hope we'll have him with us on
his recent
a future
article
podcast.
was really good.
Amazing. So if you go to my social media, I've posted some of these articles that really talk about that underlying effort, some policies that were pushed during the Obama administration, and they're still hanging around, and Biden would absolutely bring that back. And, I keep telling people, the threat is, well, if we don't build all this incredible amounts of high density housing and stack them high, stack them deep, then your grandkids won't have a place to live. And don't you want to be around your grandkids? But I always say, you know what? My grandkids are not going to toddle on the 4th floor balcony. My kids will leave and take their kids and my grandkids somewhere else before that happens.
Right.
And so that's just common sense. But, when we talk about these leftist ideas, it's never about common sense anyway.
Let's put a link to Kurtz's article in the show notes.
Okay. And you can also find those through National Review. If you watch Mark Levin, he was on the Mark Levin show last week talking about this. And I just cheered when I saw him because I thought, this is my soapbox. I talk about this so much. And I warn our communities out here on the west side of Salt Lake County that, these efforts are coming and sometimes they're subtle. And it's something that, we might be watching bigger things and not paying attention to this until maybe sometimes it's too late. But he points out, or I don't remember if this was in his article, but there was another article on the same topic I also pointed out where and posted that there's sort of an unholy alliance here between, it's a very leftist ideology, but they'll find conservative land developers and even libertarian thinkers that also want very, very minimal land use authority. But what they don't realize is the ultimate goal is a land use authority that says no single family housing.
Right.
So,
and one of those articles goes, there's a study based in Canada where they kind of toss that idea that higher density multifamily housing actually lowers the overall cost, the affordability. It increases the affordability of the housing. They knocked that on its ear. They showed that
fact check.
Yeah, they showed that the more single-family housing you have, the more affordable the housing is.
Right. And it really does. Our founders understood how important property ownership was. And I think that's one of those things we take for granted until we can't find it or can't afford it or can't access it. But when your own government starts to work against your ability to access a single family home and says that you have to share 3 walls with someone else, that's a whole different kind of property ownership. And anyway, that's coming. We'll talk about that in detail. But in the meantime, go on my Facebook, Kim for Utah, and I've posted these articles. They're very fascinating reading. You ready to go on the resolution?
Yep.
Resolution. Okay, last time we talked about our separation of powers issue. We have a state code that is very clear that an emergency declaration may not go longer than 30 days without the legislature extending. And here is why. Because there are 26 different areas of legislation that when there is an emergency declaration issued, these powers are imbued to the governor. So in essence, the governor becomes the legislature. And we do that because we want to be in an emergency. We want decisions to be made fast, be able to mobilize things quickly. We feel like it would be too hard to get 104 legislators together and convene to make these kinds of decisions. So we agree in our statute, let's give the governor some special power, but not for long. 30 days, that's it. If you think it needs to go longer than 30 days, then come back and ask us, and we will decide if you get 30 more days or if you get any extension. We consented to several months of an emergency declaration, and then realized, okay, we're in this for a long haul. This pandemic is not the same nature of an emergency you might think of, where you do need to give quick, nimble power to the governor. We also learned that we can get together virtually pretty quickly, so that's not even an issue anymore. But we got to several months into this and said, okay, now the nature of this is that the policies, the laws that need to be made really can come back to the legislature. The governor doesn't need this. So we said no. We said we're done. We're done. And then he said, well, I'm not. So he reissues a new 30-day declaration. And we spent that first month complaining and griping and scratching our heads and jaws open going, what did he really? Seriously? He did that? And most of that month went by, and we thought, oh, well, thank goodness. And actually, when we released the first podcast here, episode 1, was the day it was due to expire. And by golly, before we got to before the clock struck midnight, he reissued another extension. Okay, so now that's not okay. That's not okay. So we were very passive the first time to say, okay, we're just not going to give it. Several of us got together and decided, okay, we've got to be proactive. The law does say that a declaration can be ended with a joint resolution of the legislature. So how does that happen? And now for me, I want to be a little bit of a stickler on this and say, so we're going to follow the book and follow the law and try to pass a resolution to stop something that he didn't lawfully do in the first place. I believe he didn't lawfully do. So, but
this is an alternative to the courts, basically.
An alternative to the courts, which is not off the table.
Okay.
So you've got some citizen-initiated litigation, and litigation's not off the table.
Right. But this is what the legislature can do.
This is the one thing the legislature can do. And you know what else the legislature can do, Doran? They have this other thing that God gave them, and it's in the middle of their face, and they can use their voices. And I think,
Like their nose?
Yes.
Explain that one to me.
Okay, the nose first, because you can tell something smells fishy about what he did. Okay, and then use your voice, and that's honestly, when we are elected to the state legislature, you give me the honor and privilege to vote, but God gave me a voice. I got two things I get to use in my position. So there is the possibility of a resolution, but nothing stops you from speaking out against what the governor did. And I'm a little disappointed that we didn't see any of that. I'm not super shy, so I immediately used my voice. And so we did. A bunch of us got together, drafted a resolution. It's a good resolution. Again, go to my Facebook. I've posted a link to the resolution. And then we put it out there. We made it a very public and open resolution. Since we're not in session, you can't go online and look up all the current bills. So we put it out there for you to find. Go read the resolution and do what you want to as a citizen from there. But what we have seen is that I'm in an absolute inundation of messages from constituents telling us to sign it. So we're pretty close. Close is relevant because if you don't get there, you don't get there.
Right.
But immediately we've got a disinformation campaign. There's a little bit of shaming, a little bit of, just trying to make people believe that it's a non-effort. The resolution is not official. It's not legitimate. And I'll tell you what, there is a resolution out there that is a great legal draft. And if we get 38 House reps to sign it and 15 senators to sign it, then we go put that on a few desks. And I think it goes from there.
So does the legislature have to call a special session to sign the resolution, or can that be done offline?
So the legal information that we have is that we do not need to handle these types of resolutions in a special session. So there is a legal nature of special session that's not required. This was tested years ago with Speaker Lockhart, and the legislature was considering taking some sort of action after Attorney General John Swallow was accused of crimes.
Okay.
And so that was a question, were these actions needed to be considered in an official special session of the legislature. It was determined at that time, my understanding, this is before my time, but my understanding is no, this was a different type of business that was handled by the legislature. And so that theory and the legal nature of that process was actually resolved back then. So, but we can still do it the regular way. We can call a special session and we can have a resolution. And the governor can't veto that. So I'm someone where, there are times when, okay, if you just don't have the votes, then don't do it. But tell me, Dorn, I've now sworn an oath to the constitutions of the United States of America and the state of Utah. Several times now, I've raised my arm. I've sworn an oath to defend those constitutions, which includes the separation of powers. I don't swear oaths to policies, to tax laws. I don't swear to budgets.
Do you swear an oath to the governor?
No. And I also don't swear an oath to defend the Constitution when it's convenient or when we're not in an election cycle or when...
Or a pandemic.
Or when I can guarantee the votes are there. I mean, I swear an oath to the Constitution to defend, jealously guard my separation of powers and my duty as a state legislator. So I'm going to use my voice. I'm going to use my social media to help the people be aware of what's out there. And nothing stops us from calling the session anyway. You know what? I've heard a couple of people say, well, but it costs $40,000 call a special session. Okay, so you tell me, Doran, can you think of any example? Is there anything that would require my defending our legislative duties and purposes more than that the governor took them? I mean, honestly, is there more of a threat to separation of powers than that the governor took ours in the legislature?
Right. So it's clearly any other constitutional violation. You would think, hey, somebody's got to do something about it. The legislature either needs to stand up and say, hey, you can't do that. Somebody has to, whether it's citizens that file a lawsuit and go through the judicial process, or the legislators, see what's going on right in front of their face and do something about it.
So all of a sudden, some of our legislators have found religion on message bills or message actions. So some of them are out there saying, who either they don't support the resolution or they don't want to be on any kind of record as supporting this resolution. So some are saying, well, I just make it a personal policy to not engage in message activities. And I'm like, really? Because that's kind of what we do is we message. And we message all kinds of ways. I mean, here today on this podcast and my social media, when I'm on the floor of the House, when we push a button and vote, we are expressing the message we want to send to constituents. And I realize some of them are saying, well, if it's just for the sake of messaging, they don't like that. But no, this is a little bit more real than just, this isn't just political theater. Really, honestly, the governor, in contradiction of our denial of extending the emergency, did it anyway and has taken upon himself legislative authority.
And we talked last time about why. I mean, what is he using this for?
Oh, my gosh. In a week and a half, I don't know yet. Why? I don't know.
We talked about the policy changes with the alcohol beverage control. These are things that clearly, outside of an emergency declaration, would be legislative for sure. The governor would not be going willy-nilly and changing Utah code.
So in addition to that, today, hot off the presses, Michigan Supreme Court, they did sue, the governor of Michigan was sued for the same things we're claiming in our resolution.
Oh, wow.
And she lost. So, and if you go read their statute in Michigan, it's very, very similar to ours. Theirs is 28 days. Ours is 30. The governor is required to actually petition the legislature and ask for their permission. Where in our case, in our code, it simply expires at 30 days, and unless we renew. In their code, he has to ask, or she, in this case, has to ask. And they denied it, and she went ahead and created new extensions, very similar to what our own governor did here. So I think that looks really good for our state. I think that we can generalize that and think that would probably be a similar outcome if we litigated. Interesting thing too, that they found in that case, there was the claim that she was not able to make these declarations, and that claim prevailed. The other thing they did was they ruled that the statute itself should not have given her that much legislative authority and emergency power in the first place.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting?
So that makes me wonder if down the road, does it make sense for us to look at a constitutional amendment here in the state to change change the act of declaring an emergency declaration? Are there some refinements that need to be made there?
So
or
absolutely.
some clarification?
Absolutely. Props to Representative Brady Brammer in Utah County. Also, Senator Jake Andrake has been working on this as well. They are looking at modifying the law that recognizes the existing law didn't really contemplate a long-term situation, did not contemplate a pandemic, really contemplated things like earthquakes, fires, floods. And so they are looking at creating different mechanisms, different triggers, different scenarios, and that I imagine it will also include what powers would be attached to the different types of emergency declarations. But given this Michigan Supreme Court, and again, that's a Michigan Supreme Court, it's not a federal court; it's their Supreme Court. But I think this bodes well for us, and I think that can really inform us where we need to go with that law. But limiting, there was a dissenting opinion on that second claim about giving too much power. So the dissenters on that court felt like, no, that's still a decent thing to keep in place, but they did not prevail. So on both counts, Michigan governor's emergency powers and declarations were ruled out. So anyway, that's where we are in Utah. So if you care about this issue, and again, this is not about the policy, I want to emphasize that always. This is not about masks. It's not about closures. It's not about distancing. It's not about the disease itself. It's really about who should be making policy, law decisions right now. There's still a question about health departments. Health departments still have a whole lot of authority to do some of the things that have been done. And changing the Emergency Powers Act may, at least at this point, without changing the law, probably doesn't change that very much. So I do believe when they come back, legislature comes back into session, they'll be looking at what they can maybe also modify in regards to health departments being able to exercise certain authorities.
So in a future episode, it would be interesting for us to talk about some of the discoveries that have been made in auditing some of the emergency steps that have been taken by the government and the task force, the pandemic task force.
Absolutely. We have two, a legislative audit and a state audit on this. And so one of those is just really new. So we're going to come through that and see what we can talk about. Hopefully maybe have State Auditor John Dougal come and talk to us about that. So
okay.
A lot of things developing on that. But go to my social media. Go to Facebook, Kim for Utah, and look up the declaration. See if your representatives have signed on. And I don't want to be disrespectful in saying go after my colleagues, but really go look at the resolution. See how you feel about the governor taking away your representative and your senator right now, and express your thoughts there. Okay, let's go to Senator Mike Lee now.
Okay.
And I do just want to have a quick apology real quick. I did refer to Judge Amy Coney Barrett as Amy. We kind of had social media that was a little bit casual about her, but she's an amazing lady with an amazing history, and so grateful that we have President Trump, who's just made absolutely fantastic choices for the court. And I just feel like America is we have a fighting chance against this radical left that would run our country if we let them. And so Justice or Judge Barrett is just another in a line of fantastic choices that we have. So Senator Lee is going to discuss with us the process and tell us a little bit more about Amy and Amy Coney Barrett, Judge Barrett. And at the end, he holds us over for a few minutes, and he has some other things to add. So you'll want to listen to the end of that, and we're going to have him back on to go even deeper on that. But he has a few things to say at the end of this podcast.
Okay, here we go.
All righty. Well, we have with us my favorite senator, and really, he would have been my top pick for the SCOTUS filling the seat, but this is Senator Mike Lee. Thank you for giving us some time, and excited to talk to you about that. What we have ahead of us.
You bet. I'm honored to join you. Thanks for inviting me.
You bet. So there's a lot we can talk about. I'd like to talk about the process, and I'd like to talk about the nominee. But I want to start with, in the debate last night, we heard Vice President Biden say, this is really filling this Supreme Court vacancy should be up to the people, and the people decide in an election who they want to confirm these appointments. And you know what? We did decide. We decided in 2014 to have a Senate majority that would reject Obama's appointments. And then in 2016 and 2018, we elected a Senate that we entrusted with doing confirmations and for President Trump, and namely more conservative judges and a nominee that the president would put forth. The people did decide in 2018. This term goes through the end of this year. This appointment is here and now. And the people chose this Senate, and you are a member of that Senate. So what would you like to share with us about any of that? The process, do you know, Amy? What can you share with us about this?
Great questions. Let's start with the first question you asked. I like your summary of it. It's a good distillation. I would add to that historically, there has been a very strong trend, a trend that allows people to predict with a high degree of accuracy what's going to happen during a presidential election year when a Supreme Court vacancy arises in such a year. It's happened 29 times in the history of the Republic. All 29 of those times, when a vacancy has arisen during a presidential election year, every single time, the sitting president has nominated somebody to fill that vacancy. In 19 of those 20 times, of those 29 times, on 19 of those occasions, the vacancy arose and was addressed, and the nomination was made at a time when there is what we call united government, meaning when the Senate majority party is the same as the president's political party. So in those 19 out of those 29 instances, 18 of the 19 were actually confirmed by the Senate. In 10 of the 29, the vacancy arose during a period of divided government, where the political party controlling a majority in the Senate is different from the president's political party. In 9 of those 10 times, the Senate did not concur. It did not consent. It did not confirm the nominee. And so it's very significant that during periods of united government, you can expect with more than 90% accuracy, close to 95% accuracy, what's going to happen. You know that during periods of united government, if a vacancy arises during the presidential election year, you're going to have a nominee named. That nominee will probably be confirmed. And yeah, the point you raised about 2016 is a good one. We had a period of divided government, whereas today we have a period of united government. The period of divided government began after the 2014 midterm election, in which the Senate returned to Republican control. That was the most recent election to have occurred at the time Justice Scalia died. The American people had spoken. Those elections have consequences. Now, people have tried to accuse the Republican majority today of being hypocritical, being inconsistent with what we said back in 2016. I can't speak for what everybody said, but I can tell you what I said, and what I tried to maintain is my consistent message back then. It was not that you can't ever fill a Supreme Court vacancy when it arises during a presidential election year. It was rather that when it arises during a presidential election year, during a period of divided government, probably not going to do it. And by the way, we did do our job in 2016. Our job was to either confirm or not confirm the nominee. We chose not to confirm the nominee. We knew that there was no chance we would vote to confirm the nominee. So rather than put the nominee through an agonizing, and in that case, useless, pointless exercise of endless hearings and votes where we knew the outcome at the outset, we chose to spare him of that. There's nothing inconsistent between what we did in 2016 and what we did today. It's just different circumstances that I acknowledged at the time.
Well, and for me as a voter and as a House rep here in Utah, the fact that the president nominates judges in the first place absolutely is a factor in my decision for president. It is absolutely a factor in my decision for senators who may serve on the judiciary or who may be involved in this, the nomination process and the confirmation process. So that was on the ballot in 2019. And for Biden to say last night that it's on this year's ballot, no, not for this time, not for this vacancy. This vacancy, this confirmation process, nomination process was on the 2018 ballot, and the people spoke.
Yeah, they did. They spoke. They reelected a Republican majority to the Senate, even at the same time when they elected a Democratic majority to the House. But it's the Senate and not the House that has a role in the confirmation of presidential nominees, including Supreme Court justices. So you're exactly right.
So tell me, do you know the nominee? Have you? You did meet with her yesterday, I believe, right?
I did. Yeah, I met with her for a good long time yesterday. Had a great chat with her. I had spoken to her for a while on Saturday. My wife Sharon and I went to the announcement, and we visited with Judge Barrett and her husband Jesse and their children for a while at the White House. And then I had a good long conversation with her yesterday. I also got to know her a little bit just over the last 3 years. 3 years ago, we held hearings and eventually confirmed her to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit, where she now serves from Indiana. And got to know her then. Very impressed by her. She's very wise. She's very capable. She's a very capable legal scholar and jurist. She really knows her stuff. Every issue I've ever raised with her, she's always been ready with a lot of information to respond, and she responds in an analytically thorough and accurate way. She's also a textualist, originalist, meaning she believes that laws consist of words, and words have meaning. You have to figure out what the laws mean so as to avoid putting the judge in the position of deciding what the law should say, should mean. You don't want the judge to be in a policy-making position, rather an evaluative position to figure out what the words actually mean. As simple as it sounds, there are a number of judges who don't or won't adhere to that. And she does, and that's one of the reasons we need her on the court.
Well, I had a really unique experience a couple years ago where I had a fairly intimate meeting with one of our Utah Supreme Court justices, Justice Pierce, and he was fairly new to the court, and he said that he was studying just vigorously, deeply, everything he could about our Utah founders. And he was reading journals, he was reading news articles, everything he could do to understand the mind of our constitutional drafters and founders. And I asked, why do you do that? Do you just love history? And he said no. I go, well, yeah, he does love history, but he said, because you have to understand what the words meant when they were codified. Because words can change meaning and context can change meaning. And if we are always so fluid with interpretations and definitions and meanings, then we would just be all over the place. So he said it's very important, and I kind of visualize this. It's very important to anchor words, anchor them to meaning. And there he can start making good judgments, constitutional judgments, the better he understands what they meant at the time they were drafted. And I think we do frequently have the debate about whether, the Constitution's obsolete, whether we should modernize it, whether we should consider modern context and meanings. But boy, what would it look like if that's where we were? So I really appreciated him sharing that with us, why it was important to him to find those anchors to meaning. And so for those of us who value those originalists, that's so important. And of course, you're there.
I like the way you just described that, and I'm pleased to hear that Justice John Pierce said those things, because that's very helpful. And he's right. You've got to anchor the words in what they meant at the time they were adopted. There's a great quote. I think it's from James Madison. I used to be able to quote it more accurately, but great quote from James Madison, who of course authored much of what became the Constitution, in which he said something along these lines. If the words once put in place as law, or as the law of laws, the Constitution, if once those words are put in place, people can just reinterpret them according to a varying meaning, a set of meanings that change over time, and change the operative meaning of the words, then it's really no law at all. And you have to be able to anchor it in something. And of course, we have to remember that what we're trying to do is not so much ascertain the subjective intent of any individual lawmaker, either at the time of the drafting or ratification of the Constitution, or at the time of the drafting of a law, in the case of a legislator making statute. Rather, the appropriate objective needs to be ascertaining the original public meaning of the words in that context at the time. There's an entire discipline that has evolved within the law. It's a relatively new discipline known as corpus linguistics. And corpus linguistics has as its purpose assembling large databases of information about how words were used at certain periods of time. And you can use corpus linguistics to figure out what they meant, in 1867 or in 1789 or whatever other period you want to focus on.
Well, so I think we're hitting the end of the time that you gave us, but if you have another minute, I'd sure love to talk about the process. So we're already hearing today that some of the senators are going to boycott, for lack of a better word, the process. What do you think we can expect?
Yeah, so here's how it works. On the 12th of October, Monday the 12th of October, I think it also happens to be Columbus Day, we will convene as a Senate Judiciary Committee to begin the confirmation hearings for Judge Barrett. On the first day, we're likely to have opening statements from all the members of the committee. On the second and third day, we're likely to have 30-minute periods of questions and answers from members of the committee, alternating between Republicans and Democrats in exchanges with the nominee herself. And then on the fourth day, we're likely to have witnesses from outside organizations and people who have known the nominee over time to talk to us about the nominee. We'll then convene in what's known as a markup. At the end of that day, we'll pull up her name for consideration. The Democrats have an automatic right to, under the committee rules, to delay or hold over the final consideration of the nominee for 1 week. It's a longstanding rule that we've had in the Judiciary Committee. That will require us then to reconvene. So at that point, it'll be on the 15th. They can hold her over for a week. And so we will reconvene on the 22nd of October. And at that point, we will plan to vote her out of committee. Once she's been voted out of committee, you have to wait an intervening day to file what's called cloture. a cloture petition on the nomination. So that'll take us to the 24th, which is a Saturday. And once cloture has been filed, you have to have 30 hours elapsed. So that will probably take us into Monday, the 26th, in order for us to 25th or 26th, if I'm remembering the calendar right, before we can start voting on the floor. But what that means is that the week before the election, I think we'll be voting on Judge Barrett, and we'll vote to confirm her, and we will confirm her.
A lot of us remember the circus under the Kavanaugh hearings, and I hope that the nation is and that Amy is spared that debacle, and I look forward to that. I look forward to you doing your job and filling the seat, Senator.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do exactly that. I am concerned about that, especially because one of the many things that has struck me is I've gotten to know Judge Barrett. In addition to being a solid jurist and lawyer and legal scholar and professor, she's also just a really good person. I've met each of her 7 children and her husband. They're nice, kind, good people. I've reviewed her background extensively as a member of the committee when she went through the process before. And I've gotten to know people who know her better than I do. She's a genuinely kind, caring, decent person, and exactly the kind of person you wouldn't want to subject to an unfairly acerbic accusatory process, especially one resulting in unfair, untrue, unfounded accusations. So I raised this point a few days ago in one of our Senate Judiciary Committee markups, and pointed out, as some of my colleagues were complaining about the process and complaining about what had happened to Judge Garland, I reminded them of the fact that we had not held hearings or a vote on Judge Garland, in part because it would be cruel to do so. We had already decided we weren't going to have, that we were not going to vote to confirm him, and it's unkind to do that. And then I reminded them that there is, well, neither party is perfect by any means, and I'm not one who believes that everything Democrats do is bad and everything Republicans do is good. But in this instance, there is a sharp distinction between the parties. I challenged my colleagues on the committee, on the record, to identify one instance in which a Democratic nominee has been savagely attacked, and personally ridiculed and personally held up for scorn after being nominated to the Supreme Court and going through the Judiciary Committee. They couldn't identify one. And I pointed out, I don't think you will be able to identify one because I don't think there are any. But I pointed out, we've got an abundance of examples. Brett Kavanaugh, most recently, and I reminded them of the fact that we spent months reviewing Kavanaugh's background, months having the FBI investigate him. We held a week full of hearings. We even held a special hearing, as we always do, for these nominees behind closed doors, where members can bring forward anything from a background investigation, information that's treated as classified because it's personal and sensitive. Their ranking Democrat on the committee didn't even bother to show up to that portion of the hearing. And yet they waited until all of that was done. All of the committee hearing process was behind us, even though they knew of the accusations they were going to raise, and then they floated them as if we were not supposed to notice what they had just done, that they had deliberately waited until after the committee had run its course, thus delaying by several months the time in which they could do it, and thus compounding the difficulty for Judge Kavanaugh to respond to it. Now, ultimately, these accusations that were leveled against him could not be corroborated, not by one person. I spent hours and hours and hours leafing through all these confidential documents, all hundreds and hundreds of pages of FBI background investigation reports. There was not one source that could corroborate any of the allegations. Not one. Oh, and I reminded him that Judge Kavanaugh wasn't even the only one. They did the same thing to my former boss, Justice Alito, They attacked him personally, savagely, so much so that Martha Ann Alito, a dear friend, my former boss's wife, who is tough as nails and is not an emotional person, she broke into tears in the middle of the hearing. They pushed him so hard and so unfairly. They rather savagely and unfairly and without corroboration attacked Clarence Thomas. And they were really, really nasty to Judge Bork as well. And so after a while, they can't expect the American people not to notice this. Now, look, it's one thing for them to disagree. If they want to say, look, we don't want textualists or originalists on the court, that's fine. I understand that. They can vote against the nominee. And when they're running the Senate, they can even choose not to confirm that nominee or not to hold hearings. That's their prerogative. It's not how I would do it, but it's what they would. But it's one thing to do that. It's quite another thing to try to destroy a person's life, to attack their character, and to do so without even bothering to figure out whether you can find a single witness to corroborate them. That's what we've got to be ready to pull out of us. And look, already they're attacking her, not just on the basis of her judicial philosophy, which is an appropriate subject of inquiry, but on things like her religion. I stood in suspended animation 3 years ago when she was going through her Seventh Circuit confirmation proceeding, when all of a sudden I heard my colleague, Senator Feinstein, who is a friend and a trusted colleague, somebody I've enjoyed working with, but all of a sudden I heard her say something like,
the
dogma.
Barrett,
the dogma lives loudly within you. And I thought, surely I must have misunderstood what she said. But I hadn't. She was, in fact, saying basically that Judge Barrett was too Catholic. Another one of my colleagues then asked her to characterize her Catholicism, whether it was Orthodox Catholicism or some other form of it. I don't really know what was meant there. But these things are utterly irrelevant. They're unfair.
and their religious tests.
Yeah, they're religious tests. And last I checked, those are prohibited by the religious tests prohibition in Article 6 of the Constitution, and arguably prohibited by both the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment.
Well, yeah, I do look forward to the confirmation of Judge Barrett and your role in that, Senator, and look forward to learning more about Judge Barrett as we go, and to fill this seat with an absolutely highly qualified judge here, and grateful for your role and grateful for your time today. I know we went over, so thank you so much for being with us today.
Happy to do it. Before I go, can I raise one more thing?
You bet. Please.
My staff's going to run in a second, I'm sure, and pull me off, but I wanted to mention, I just sent you a video clip a few minutes ago. Today we had Jim Comey, the former FBI director, in front of the Judiciary Committee. And
oh boy, I missed that.
Yeah, it was fiery. You missed it, but I just sent you a video clip of my exchange with him. It was really upsetting for me because, as I pointed out to him, when I was a young federal prosecutor, he came and visited the U.S. Attorney's Office in Salt Lake City, where I worked at the time, and he gave us a rah-rah speech, about being a federal prosecutor and all that it entails, and how the office has to be respected and how the job can best be performed. I became a huge Jim Comey fan at the time. This is in the early 2000s, maybe 2002, 2003, something like that. He was either the Deputy Attorney General or the Assistant Attorney General over the Criminal Division at the time. I don't remember which position he held at that moment. But I told him I became a big fan of his. But the way he is handled and the way he responded or failed to respond to our questions today about various investigations, including not only the Carter Page crossfire hurricane, but also the investigation of General Flynn, it's just appalling. The abuse of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act is stunning in this. And yet he acknowledged to us that he had signed the FISA court certifications, but then basically said he didn't know the details behind it. And I asked him, what good does it do for you to sign a certification if you have no idea what it was? Or if you weren't even aware of the fact that there had been material misrepresentations made, or if after you became aware of those material misrepresentations, you still signed it and still didn't notify the FISA court of material misrepresentations in the application. He either couldn't or wouldn't answer basically any of the questions. So it's sad. It's not only upsetting to me because, as I pointed out to him, none of us would have ever come to light had Donald Trump never been elected president of the United States. These guys were all assuming. Strzok, Page, Comey, all of these people must have been assuming that Hillary Clinton was going to win. And had she won, none of it would have come to light. It makes you wonder, though, if the only way for this stuff to get out, and the fact that they're targeting those they dislike, whether political opponents or people they just personally have a grudge against, the only way this ever gets out is if the target of the investigation happens to get elected president of the United States of America. How can anybody have any confidence
Well, they
in
don't.
the way FISA is administered?
This is horrifying to me as both a state lawmaker and a citizen, that these are powerful institutions in our government, that this is deep-seated corruption. And how do we clean that out? How do we restore the trust? And I'd love for you, I know you're limited on time. I'd love for you to come back sometime and talk about really what are we not hearing in the public, in the media? What are we missing here? And I'd love for you to share more if you're able to, maybe come back, and really appreciate your time today.
Okay.
But I am horrified. So I'm going to watch that video, and may I share it with
please do.
social media?
Yeah.
And I know that we're going to have a lot of questions after seeing that. So I'd love for you to come back if you will, and let's talk deeper about this. And people need to know what's gone on here.
Indeed, they do.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Senator.
Thanks so much, Kim. Great to be with you as always. And thanks for all you do for the cause of freedom.
Thank you. So thanks again for joining us here at Candidly Kim. Next week, we're going to have some great guests. We're going to have Dr. Mary Tipton, who is on the advisory board of medical practitioners for Trump.
Is that it? She keeps flying back to Washington, D.C.
I know, like last week, I'm in my living room and like Mary's on TV again. And I looked, I noticed that she was, she appeared to be on her phone waiting for this press conference to start. So I'm texting her like, come on, Mary, what are you doing there? So she was there when the president released his plans for healthcare reform. So she's going to come and talk to us.
What? He has a plan for healthcare reform?
He has the best plan ever.
The best plan ever.
Best plan ever. Actually, I really love what he's brought forth, and there are things that I've also been encouraging, promoting. And but Dr. Mary Tipton, she lives. She's one of my constituents here in West Jordan. So it's exciting that we have a high-level coalition member right here in our community, and so she'll talk about those. And she has been relentless. Go find her on Twitter and go. You'll want to listen when she comes on next week. I think we're going to.
She's always very interesting.
Very interesting, very informative, not afraid to say anything. So President made a great choice putting her on his advisory board. So we're going to have her. We're also going to have pretty soon here, we're going to have Congressman Jason Chaffetz. Now,
nice.
Fox News contributor.
And he's written a couple of good books.
He's written amazing books. I just read Power Grab, an amazing book. So go read the first 3 chapters of Power Grab. You won't be able to put the rest of it down, but you may cry because the corruption that he exposes in these books. True to form, what we expected when he was the chair of the Oversight Committee, now just revealing in great detail how swampy the swamp is. So he's going to come on and he's going to talk to us about what's going on with the FBI, with Jim Comey. And, he really has some fantastic insight there. So we're going to have him on. Also, Senator Mike Lee will have him back to talk about that same issue because he's in the middle of that with the hearings and everything.
Yep.
So we've got great things coming up. And please Download our podcast on Podbean or on iTunes, YouTube, Candidly Kim. And please give us a like and a share and a rating if you like what you hear. And we need your help promoting. We're not, we don't have big marketing firms behind us yet. We're local and
We're new at this.
We're new at this and having fun with this. We want to hear from you if there's a particular topic you'd also like us to talk about. But Candidly Kim, iTunes, and please share and find us also on social media. So
Great.
See you next time. Thanks, Doran, for producing.
Thanks for giving me this opportunity. It's awesome. It's fun.
Good night.